And good morning. We are live on the Falcons Podcast. It is the Monday after opening week of the season, of a disappointing opening weekend of the season. This is the Falcons Podcast. My name is Scott Kennedy. Nick Kendall should be joining me shortly. And the Falcons are off to an 0-1 start after blowing a golden opportunity to start the season 1-0 at home against division rival and reigning NFC South four-time NFC South champions, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in a game where the Buccaneers didn't play very well either. There was a lot of sloppiness. It looked like a week one game in a league that no longer plays preseason games. We'll get into some of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to go through a stock up, stock down. I want to hear from you. I know we've got a lot of super chats or some mad Falcons fans coming in. And I'll tell you right now, I'm only calling for one job. So if you were looking for a fire and brimstone today, you're not going to get it from me, at least not yet, till I probably get worked up and the coffee kicks in. But I'm only calling for one job going into today. And I don't think it's going to be too hard for you guys to figure out who that's going to be. But we do go live every Monday and Wednesday. And now Garrett Chapman has a show on Tuesday and Thursday nights as well. So we go live because we like having the conversation with y'all. I want to hit on some of my super chats first. And also, if you haven't noticed or if it didn't pop up because I just did it and I haven't made a big deal out of it, but I have added memberships to the YouTube side of things, to the YouTube channel. And as that starts to grow, we'll start doing members only type of things. I'll pop in for quick live chats, for videos, for hot takes, that type of stuff where we will start taking advantage of the YouTube membership and feed off of the community that we have built here with y'all. So I don't think we have a member yet, so I'm interested to see who the first one might be when you sign up. But the first one in today is no surprise. He came in, Bucks Raise Bolts. And Bucks Raise Bolts isn't here just to gloat or anything like that because he's a good member of our community and is in here year-round, not just for Tampa Bay games. So I hope you enjoyed the game yesterday. From an entertainment perspective, except for all the stoppages, it was a very entertaining game. And the one thing I promised y'all coming into this season, that the Falcons were going to make the playoffs, not that they weren't going to fall on their faces, but they would be more entertaining, that this team would be more fun to watch. Doesn't mean they're not going to rip your heart out at the end. It's the Falcons. Come on. But it was going to be more fun to watch as far as the attacking style defense, more big plays, et cetera, et cetera. And I think this game delivered yesterday. Trenton, he says, for the lights and the coffee. The lights are on. I have not had my first sip of coffee yet. I think it's actually too hot. I was catching back up, going back through the game this morning, looking at snap counts, looking at personnel and that kind of stuff, because I'm interested to see how they use things, how they use players and the adjustments they made after halftime, et cetera, et cetera. So I haven't even had my first sip of coffee. I'm afraid if I have this one, it's going to burn the hell out of me. So we're going to wait on our Lion coffee just a little bit, but I certainly appreciate the super. He says, ease off Zach Robinson. You're starting Eli Wilkinson and Casey Washington. You can't run the whole playbook. We know this for weeks. It was too much Algier and Pitts to begin with and not enough Bijan and Charlie Warner in the second half. So one of the things as far as the stock up goes, I watched because I was interested to see how they would hold up. I watched almost on every single play on the offense. I watched Eli Wilkinson at right tackle, and I watched Ryan Neusel at center to see how they would fare. And they left Eli Wilkinson alone more often than I expected. I expected him and Charlie Warner to be blood brothers out there. And I'll tell you what, Eli Wilkinson was not a problem. I know there are some folks in here that say, Wilkinson, cut Wilkinson, this, and this. I've seen that comment already. I watched every single snap. I watched right tackle. I watched center. The problem on the offensive line, if there was one, it was not Eli. Eli held up in pass protection when he was singled out for the most part. Falcons only gave up one sack, not a ton of pressures. And Neusel was fine. The stuff that was coming in. I'll tell you who got his keister whipped. Sorry, I almost cussed. It's early for that. I told you I wouldn't get too fired up. But who got whipped yesterday was left guard Matthew Bergeron. Matthew Bergeron had a nightmare of a game yesterday. Was it Calais Cansey? They're the number 94. Every time I looked up, I'm like, all right, because I started every snap. I'd watch right tackle. I'm like, well, he did his job. Then I'd move over to center. I'm like, well, he did his job. Who's blowing this play up? Oh, He went right through either the gap or just straight through Bergeron. For all of the concerns we had about the right side of the offensive line, helps have Lindstrom over there. The left side of the offensive line was the liability in this game. Now, I'm not saying, Matthew Bergeron's garbage, the big problem. No, he's been a good player. But he struggled yesterday. It wasn't Wilkinson. Now, I don't know if Wilkinson can hold up for 18 games, but week 1, he did just fine. Eli Wilkinson was just fine in this game. He was not the problem. He was adequate at worst, pretty good at best. So Eli was okay as far as that goes. I want to hit Edward Brown coming in with a super chat as well. He says, are the Falcons uncomfortable with Penix under center? Seems you limit the play calling, especially on short yardage situations. That is kind of maddening, isn't it? And I listened to the game. So I listened to Wes and Dave Archer live, and then I came home and I watched the game. And as they're lining up in their first 4th and 1 around midfield or so, Dave was all over him. He's like, you need one, you need 1 yard, and you're running back 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. I don't like it, and it got stuffed. He goes, I still don't like it. I think that he just finally, you could almost hear his neck crack as he's shaking his head. He goes, I just don't understand it. I don't like it either. To have those 7 yards. Who's the best short yardage runner in football for the last 3 years? Jalen Hurts, right? Well, he's lined up on top of the center practically, and then gets in right behind him. You get as close to the line of scrimmage as you can, and then push. Meanwhile, you're lining up, as a punter, as a punt protector back there, 7 yards deep in a pistol. And it's too slow developing, and then to try and run wide out of a goal line situation, to try and run wide on something like that while you're getting overloaded on the line of scrimmage. The short yardage play calling and execution was poor, was extremely poor, Edward. I agree with you. And as far as them being uncomfortable under center with Penix, yes, it certainly looks that way. I won't state that for a fact, but what are my eyes telling you? What are your eyes telling you? What are your eyes telling you? They're telling me that they are uncomfortable with him under center, and it's limiting on that for sure. Curtis, want to hit Curtis here real quick before I get to the next super. Curtis says, good morning, Scott, Nick, and Falcons Nation. That's all y'all. So good morning from Curtis. We need to work on containment with the DL. Zach needs to create better schemes or choose up better plays to call in certain situations. Cut Koo. A lot to unpack here. As he says. And then he finishes up. We played the starters if they played the starters in the preseason to see how these plays would work out, they would have known what worked and what doesn't. There's more preseason than talent evaluation. And I agree wholeheartedly. I've said before, there's something just a little sadistic about this game of football, where it's really the only sport where you're afraid to play it. You're afraid to practice. You're afraid to play. I mean, there's something kind of wrong with that, but it's too late for us now. We're hooked. Even in boxing and MMA, you spar. You might do something a little different, but it's the only thing where they're afraid to play games that don't necessarily matter. They're afraid to practice because they're afraid to get hurt, and they're going to get hurt anyway. You cannot limit injuries in this game. You cannot hide from them. So you got to play. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And as I was listening to this game, they were talking about, someone said, I can't believe they didn't play Penix at all in the preseason. I said, well, I can. I said, but you know what? Even with this philosophy, what made me even madder was last year not playing him in the preseason. You draft a developmental quarterback and you're not going to develop him in the preseason. That's maddening. Those are live reps. And for me, it's not even necessarily, yes, the timing and all that type of stuff, but it's also getting the plays in and out, getting the substitutions in and out. I know that 18-play drive, they were trying to run down the clock, work out the clock, and it's like, and they did for the most part. And it was a magnificent drive. But the next time they get the ball, they're still snapping the ball with 1 and 2 seconds on the play clock. I almost called it a shot clock. On the play clock. That, to me, I do not like that at all. As that play is winding down, that clock is going off in the defensive lineman's heads too. I'm counting down, going 3, 2, 1, fire. And I'm coming off the ball. And it limits your options when you're snapping the ball under 2 and 3 seconds every single time. And I'm not a huge fan of that. As far as let's see. The other part of this was we need to work on containment with the DL. For me, right here, this one right there, containment with the defensive line was the key to this game. We can break down several different things. For me, the difference in this game was Baker Mayfield being able to extend drives on third and medium running the ball and not being containment. That was the difference in the game. Now, we can talk about missed field goals. We can talk about, and we will, poor special teams, because the special teams beyond Koo, the return game and the return coverage is horrendous. It was the worst in the league last year, and it hasn't gotten better. 54-yard punt return. Let's see, what else was in there? Kicking the ball, through the end zone for the 35, not kicking the ball short. And these are still on Koo. Leaving the ball short, getting the ball on the 40. Special teams were bad too. But for me, I'm with Curtis on this. The difference in this game was Baker Mayfield extending drives on third down. So thank you, Curtis. Appreciate the comment. Want to hit Dwan Freeman here. He says, good morning. Penix is clutch, and the linebackers secondary are playing intense. We will figure out the pass rush, play calling, and special teams, hopefully fast. Lots to build on here, folks. And this is the optimistic, and I'm kind of a contrarian. When everybody is like too high, I feel like I need to be the voice of reason. Let's bring things down. When everybody's all in the dumps, I try and find all the positives. I don't know. That's kind of why I'm an a-hole too, I guess. But I'm kind of with Dwan on this. What a difference. We talked about the difference that Divine Diablo was going to make on this defense. What a difference he was going to make. And he was so good yesterday. The young guys in the secondary, Xavier Watson, Billy Bowman, played really, really well. The pass rush is still a bit of a concern, but that's not totally understandable. Now, Scott, they had 41% pressure rate. I know. And it was all with 5-man rushes or more. There still wasn't enough 4-man getting after it and then it was the containment problem. I thought so I'm going to contradict myself. That happens when you're going stream of thought. I thought the pass rush was okay. Wasn't perfect, but the containment part of it is also part of the pass rush. And that let the team down as far as those guys breaking a 5-man containment and Baker Mayfield being able to run for first downs. The special teams, Bradley Pinion had a good game. After that, F. The special teams were an F. And when I'm looking at this, as far as, he says, hopefully fast, figuring this out. You've got a quarterback that engineered 2 scoring drives, put yourself in scoring position. So you didn't score because you missed a field goal. 59 seconds, get down to a 44-yard field goal indoors. Anything under 45 yards should be automatic. I almost say 50 these days. Anything under 45 yards should be automatic indoors at this level. Getting a quarterback that can engineer a fourth quarter 18-play drive for a touchdown, turn around and put your team in scoring position on the, 31-yard line with 59 seconds left. Getting a quarterback that can do that, that's the hard part. That's the hard part, folks. I've said, what are the two? There's the one stat I look at as far as what stat do I like for quarterbacks? I like touchdown to interception ratio. That's one of my favorite stats. But by gut feeling, how do I judge quarterbacks? If I give this guy the ball with 2 minutes, how do I feel about it? That's my gut reaction on how I judge quarterbacks. I'm giving Penix the ball with 2 minutes and down a score. I feel pretty good. Y'all. And that's the hard part. Stock up. We can go through, if I go through some of these with y'all on this show, stock up, stock down. Stock up, Michael Penix Jr. You don't watch that game and say, oh, yeah, and people were giving him the incomplete grade, between 25 and 28, somewhere in that. Now, we haven't seen enough of him yet, and his completion percentage wasn't great. So we're going to leave him down here. Stock up. If this isn't a top 15 quarterback in the league, I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. So, and that's just a start as far as when the quarterback rankings come out, he won't be. He'll probably move up into the late teens, but the Falcons have their guy at under center. They've got their guy. God willing, he stays healthy. This is your guy for years to come. And that's one of the big takeaways from this is Michael Penix is the guy. He's a dude. Trenton, good to see you. Thanks for the super. He says fans are wondering why we're in the pistol and the shotgun constantly. It started last year was you have to do it because of Kirk Cousins and his lack of mobility. And I fought back on that last year because you can run play action. Well, you can't run play. Yes, you can. You can run read options and play action and all that type of stuff out of the pistol and out of the shotgun. And they didn't. So why are you in there constantly? Shotgun, pistol. They all have their uses, but again, when you're never under center, you don't trust being under center when it's 4th and 1, when you have to get it. And it showed. I think you have to be able to go under center in this league. What has been the most unstoppable play in football for the last 3 years? I said it already. I'll say it again. It's Jalen Hurts and the push, whatever they call it. The Philly special. That was a different play. I know. The push. It's been the most unstoppable play. That's a free play. If I get to 2nd and 1, I have a free play. This is what made Tim Tebow so dangerous in college with Florida. If you got to 2nd and 1, they'd get 2 free plays. Let me correct myself. Apologies. You get 2 free plays. They could go deep shot on 2nd and 1. They could go deep shot on 3rd and 1, and then they'd have an automatic on 4th and 1. It was just automatic. That's what Philly's been able to do. This team got to goal to go on 1, and what did they end up needing? 8 plays. They got the touchdown with some help from, in old school, they got some help from some officiating and from Tampa Bay on defense with holds and some magnificent plays from Michael Penix. But man, you should be able to knock the ball in from 1 yard, 1st and goal. I love those plays where it's 1st and goal from the 12 and you get a 1st down. And now it's 1st and goal. Those are automatic. Not right now. And I don't care how big Vita Vea is. I can put 2 guys on him. I can run around him. It's like they gave up. They abandoned it. They abandoned the short yardage game. Man, I've got a number 8 overall pick in my running back. I've got one of the best power runners in football in Tyler Algier. I've got arguably the best guard in football. I've got a 1st-round pick at left tackle. I got a 2nd-round pick at left guard. I've got arguably the best blocking tight end in football in Charlie Warner, and I'm abandoning the short yardage running game. I don't like that. Again, I used the term last year that this team was soft. The 2024 team was soft. I don't think this team is soft, but it's a softer mentality. You shouldn't abandon that. The identity of this team for the last 5 years has been we can run when we want to, and you've invested to the point where your personnel still says that, and they abandon it. They abandon the short yardage running game. So I agree on that one. We sound strange. Good to see you. Thank you for the super, my friend. He says there's no stress like Falcons football stress. I don't know. I feel like the stress is actually an improvement. Because what I always say is, what's worse than anger is apathy. Is when you just say, man, F this team, I'm done. That's what's worse for a team and for a league and for players and coaches is apathy. The stress, at least, you're still in it. I know this is a glass half full take from the largest perspective, but yes, there's still always this, what are they going to do to mess this up feeling it's just got to be hard to break. I mean, it's been 60 years like this. And I said I was going to call for one job. I've talked about guys who looked bad out there. We talked about Zach Robbins and some of the limitations. Overall, across the board, it was the game was okay. They had plenty of yards, threw for yards, rushed for what they ended up rushing for. I think 70 yards. Yeah, 70 yards rushing. Overall, the running game wasn't great. Michael Penix Jr., 27 of 42, for a touchdown, 93 rating, solid. Defense was good. I was pleased with how Wilkinson and Newsel played. The running, I was a little surprised, and I'll say it again, I was a little surprised when Marquise Williams was retained by this staff, and then after last year was retained again by this staff. I'm surprised Marquise Williams is in Atlanta, and they'll keep him for this year. He's a special teams coach, for those of you all don't know, but the coverage units, the kickoff, punt coverage, kickoff coverage units, they're just dreadful. And how many guys do you have on this team specifically for those units? Kadar Haj, Mike Ford, Bertrand out there. You know, how did you choose your wide receivers? You know, special teams. Jamal Agnew is a special teams guy who was hurt all preseason, and guess what? He's hurt again. Funny how that happens. The special teams were bad, but the one guy, and he is on special teams, so I can continue this. The one guy whose job I will absolutely call for is Younghoe Koo. It's time. Kickers are a commodity. You cannot afford in this game, where the largest point spread of the entire weekend coming into this game was the Denver Broncos against the Tennessee Titans at 8.5. The largest point spread for 16 games was 8.5 for the whole weekend. You cannot afford a misfiring kicker. And he had the worst season of his career last year, won the job in camp. Here comes the season, and he had at least 3 missed kicks, maybe 4, 2 kickoffs, doinks one off and in, banks one off and in for a field goal, and then misses a 44-yarder. It's time. You've got to move on. I don't know that they will, but I don't want to see, God bless him. Thank you for the things you've done. You've made plenty of money in this game. Congratulations. But it's time. You need to move on from him. When you're on the 33, that should be field goal range. And if Lenny Craig is out there right now, the 40 is field goal range. And right now you don't feel good about Younghoe Koo no matter where he's lining up. That's got to change. It has to change. So that's the one job I will absolutely call for. Mike Harvey. Now I think this is cooled off. Let me take a slug of coffee real quick, Mike. Appreciate the super. Mike, he says, Scott, do you have any faith in this team won't go 0-2 when they leave Minneapolis next week? Well, let's see what we see from Minneapolis. They've got a guy making his first ever start in JJ McCarthy. So do I have any faith that they won't go 0-2? Let me put it this way. I feel better about going to Minneapolis and winning next week, than I did going up to Philadelphia after that crap show game against Pittsburgh Steelers last year in week 1. You remember that one? Remember how bad the offense looked in that game? Where they were basically, okay, if we're in the pistol, we're going to run it. If we're in the shotgun, we're going to pass it. Like 95, all but one play. They tipped their hands so much. And then they went up to Philly and won that game. So do I have faith? Faith isn't the right word for me and the Falcons, or me in sports, period. I promise you that. Do I think the Falcons can go up and win? Yes, I do. And I feel better about them being able to do that in Minnesota than I did about them doing it in Philly last year. So no, I'm not ready to throw in the towel on this team just yet. It's just that there's several things that look much better, especially on the defensive side of the ball. There's several things on offense we thought were going to be pretty good and were. Do I want to see Darnell Mooney back stretching the field vertically a little bit more? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I think Darnell will be back, if not this week, the next week, or else they would have IR'd him. They would have put him out for 4 weeks. So the reason they didn't is because they thought he'd be back within 4 weeks. Won't surprise me if he's back. At what capacity, we'll see. But I do, Mike. I feel better about them going up to Minnesota, and I'm looking forward to watching that game. That's the tonight's game, right? Chicago and Minnesota. Because I was looking to see where Grady was, and I wanted to kind of keep an eye on him and see how they did. Tony Buck Buchanan, Big Buck Buchanan. Good to see you, Tony. Thanks for the super chat and checking in with us. He says, Diablo looks great, even better than Anderson did. Washington looks damn good. Pitts look good also, but I question some of the fourth down play calls. Yeah. Again, they shouldn't have ever gotten a fourth down on some of those. You're first and goal from the 2, and you run sideways and you lose 3 yards. Now it's a passing play. In the NFL, anything 5 yards or longer ends up being a passing play. And they just showed zero faith in being able to run the ball between the tackles, and that's unfortunate. Eli did okay, and Charlie Warner's over there still, and Chris Lindstrom's over there still. But the problems they had were coming in from the left side of the offensive line. Like I said, Bergeron played pretty poorly. Casey Washington is a solid number 3-4 guy. Need Drake to have a better game. Drake London did not have his best game. He had 15 targets. We were talking about spamming the ball to Drake London. They certainly did that. He had 15 targets, but only had, let me see here, 55 yards on 15 targets with a long of 12. That's not a great running back line. If I had 15 carries for 55 yards, I'd say, well, they really shut him down. If that was a running back, let alone a wide receiver, that's an incomplete pass with nothing to show for it. And then the risk of putting the ball in the air and getting a sack and all this, a holding call, all those things. So Drake didn't have a great game yesterday. If that's my biggest worry, I'm not worried. Drake can play. And Diablo looked fantastic. Divine Diablo looked really good. The difference that he can make on the back end of the defense, attacking the front side of the defense, he's just so much more athletic than Bertrand and Landman that were forced to play last year. And then I think he's probably a little bit better instinctively at that position as far as filling gaps goes, because Troy Anderson he's a freak of an athlete. Troy Anderson is a 10. He's a 10 on the relative athletic score. But he played like 3 different positions in college. He was like all conference at Montana State as like a quarterback, a running back, and a linebacker. So he'd sometimes take wrong angles. He was just such a good athlete, he would make up for it. That's not necessarily the case at this level. You take a wrong angle or pick the wrong gap to cover. By the time you turn around, the guy's, he's breathing down the Jesse Bates's neck. He's already picked up 10 yards. But Diablo was certainly a big upgrade. As far as stock up, Divine Diablo. I'm going to get a stock down, and then I'm going to keep moving down the super chat. Y'all are killing it today, and I certainly appreciate it. It means a lot. It's very humbling. One of the stock downs for me, we mentioned as far as veterans go, was Bergeron on the offensive line. Stock down on the defensive line, David Onyemata was not good. And I noticed he was getting washed out of there pretty easily. And at least here come Caden and Divine having good games. And then you've got Billy Bowman and Watts and Bates also close to the line of scrimmage. So you didn't notice it as much as you would have last year. But he was still getting washed out of there. And frankly, I'm not necessarily putting all that on David Onyemata. We've said all year long, all offseason long, he's not a middle of the 3-man line. He's not a nose guard. He is a defensive tackle who needs to be off, and they call it the 3 technique, which is not between the center and guard taking on double teams all the time. It's trying to split gaps between either the guard and tackle or the center and guard, but moved off a little bit of defensive tackle. That's not his natural position. And you know who started the second half? LaCale London, the only guy they have on that roster that's over 320 pounds. So Onyemata did not have a great game. Stock down for me, but I'm not entirely surprised. What surprised me, at least if you had said, hey, Onyemata's still on this team, that happened once Grady Jarrett was cut. He's the only veteran out there. He's the only guy with more than 3 years and 30 starts of experience. You kind of had to keep him for the room. But it's not his natural position. Stock up, though, who played fantastic next to him and is a real problem as a 3-man front, because they played a 3-man front the whole game, was Zach Harrison. Zach Harrison was fantastic in this game. He got a push against the right side of their offensive line. He'd collapse the pocket. He was good in run defense. Zach Harrison, we talked about as one of our breakout players, and it's really hard to do that as a 3-man front defensive end, because you're constantly taking on two linemen. Zach Harrison had a great game. He played really, really well. Jet Jones, good to see you. Certainly appreciate the super. Love all y'all coming in. Like I said, it helps keep these lights on, keeps his forehead nice and shiny, keeps us in content. And Jet Jones, he says, good morning, Scott. Good morning, right back at you. He says, started fast, ended pretty strong. Got to clean up the middle. Wasn't terrible, though. Penix continues to show he's clutch. Yeah, I mean, ice in his veins. I titled that as one of our social media posts was, Michael Penix has ice in his veins about that kicker, though. He's got that clutch gene. He's got that it factor. The stuff you can't measure. I've said all along, I've said forever, the hardest position to scout is probably quarterback because it relies the least on things on measurables, not counting kickers. Kickers are the hardest. The least on measurables. If I've got a guy who's 6'6" with 35-inch arms and 310 pounds who runs a 4.8 and has a 4.3 shuttle, he's going to be a pretty good offensive tackle or defensive lineman. I can figure that out. But quarterback, we've got these guys that can throw it through a brick wall but can't play the position. In the 4.4 40 doesn't do you much good if you can't throw the ball with accuracy at that position. And then the moxie it takes to be able to deliver it with accuracy under pressure and make the right pre-snap reads and reading the defense. Michael Penix was fantastic. Going against a Tampa defense that was okay last year, not great, but they're still led by a defensive coach in Todd Bowles, who isn't afraid to confuse and mix up looks to confuse the young quarterbacks. So I know that I'm not looking at the whole chat here as I'm going down the supers, but if Bucks raise Bolts in here, there isn't any way you could watch that game and not be impressed with Michael Penix Jr. You just can't. He's really, really good in the middle of it. But going back to the middle, he started, and a lot of this was the first pass, maybe not the first pass, but the completion to Bijan for the explosive play for the first touchdown. But he was at one point, let me see, I wrote this down because it's hard to find like in-game stats. So I was writing them down on the graphics. Where the hell did I put it? Koo was short. Yeah, we knew that. They came out in this first two drives. Here it was. He was in the first two drives. Penix was 5 of 6 for 98 yards. And then, going in, I think this might have been in the third quarter. He was 13 of 23 for 144 yards. So that's 8 of 17. It's a little less than 50% and still only had 50 extra yards. And that was a long stretch. But again, we talk about short sample sizes. These games ebb and flow. At the end of the day, he ended up being, 27 of 42 for 298 and a touchdown. And then he ran for a touchdown. It's a pretty good day. He had a pretty, and then more importantly, again, when he did it, the fourth quarter, again, he was absolutely clutch. Gear Trail 95, explain why we went away from using a spy on Baker Mayfield. It worked in the first quarter. And Gear Trail, I'd have to watch it more closely to see if there truly was a spy. Because typically and I don't remember seeing one, because it's when they actually truly use a spy, it's obvious. It'll be usually a middle linebacker, and it looks like a mirror. 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, they're just shadowing. If Baker rolls, he rolls. And I didn't see that. I don't remember seeing that. I just feel like they did a better job, Gear Trail, of collapsing the pocket and keeping containment. So I don't think they spied him in the first quarter as much as they were getting a push, and they were able to get multiple guys in on him, so he didn't have anywhere to go. And some of it's down in distance as well, where maybe I'm not as deep in my coverages and I can peel off my coverages a little bit, but I don't remember them truly using a spy. Because like I said, sometimes you'll see that and it'll look like a mirror. I'll watch it again though, Gear Trail. I appreciate it, but that to me was the difference in the game, was him breaking the pocket and picking up first downs, and those 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 6s. You've heard Nick and say all the time, in order to get to these pass rushing downs, you got to eat your veggies. Well, they were in pass rushing downs all the time. It was 2nd and 8 and 3rd and 5 or longer. It seemed like most of the game. And then the guy that was killing you rushing the ball, 5 rushes, 39 yards. I'll be shocked if all 5 of those for Baker Mayfield didn't go for first downs. And if I look at, the game stats, that's probably, a third of their first downs. First down, 16. They had 16 first downs. 5 of them were probably on Baker Mayfield rushes. And those are ones where you feel like you've got coverage. You're doing a good job on the back end. You've earned your third down right. You get pressure, and he's just blowing that. If you finish those, if you finish even 2 or half of those, and he doesn't break, it's a different game. It's a turnover on downs. So, going through this, 23 first downs versus 16. The rushing first downs was 5. Baker Mayfield had 5 rushes. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'd be shocked if all freaking 5 of those weren't Baker Mayfield rushing the ball on his 5 rushes. Total plays, 71. Total yards, 358 to 260. Time of possession was probably in your favor after that 18-play drive in the fourth quarter. It was 35 to 24. The turnover battle, there weren't any turnovers in this game. It was an evenly played game across, and it was a well-played game. Who's ever spied Baker Mayfield? Well, I tell you what, he beat you with his legs. He made a couple really nice throws, but he only had 167 yards passing in this game on 17 and 32. So he had 3 touchdowns, but it was 17 to 32. You limited him in the passing game. He won this. They won this with their legs. And then for me, it was special teams was one of the, obviously the last play, but for me, it was more than that. It was the field position battle where you're kicking the ball short of the landing zone, and they get the ball in the 40. Their return when you took the lead in the fourth quarter, they return the ball, almost break containment the whole way through, and they're starting the ball on the 38. Man, you start the ball on the 38, you are 1 15-yard crossing route from being in field goal range for most kickers. So the special teams, the hidden yardage in this game was just an absolute killer on this. B-side rap reviews coming in with a super. Thank you, my friend. I certainly appreciate it. He says, I didn't do the coffee fund. Thank you. I'll drink to that. He says, I can't wait to clean house on the coaching staff in 16 games. Ulbrich was pretty good, though. Yeah, and again, the holdover that didn't surprise me, if you were able to keep him from Arthur Smith's staff, was Dwayne Ledford, the offensive line coach. Eli Wilkinson, again, and I haven't gone through all the chats. It's really busy in here. Thank you very much. If this is your first time here, hit the thumbs up, like it, follow us, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Eli Wilkinson was fine. He was, I watched every single snap of his at right tackle. He was not a liability out there, and they left him alone a lot more than I was expecting him to. And part of that's Ledford. Ledford is freaking good on the offensive line. I thought Ulbrich had a good game too. Again, aside from the loss of containment, how do you fix that? Can you, with the personnel you have, the loss of containment on Baker Mayfield? You're going to give up plays. Those guys are paid to make plays too. You're not going to pitch shutouts. But there wasn't the overwhelming sense of inevitability of these guys just methodically driving down the field while the Falcons are backpedaling. Just what are you doing? I never had that feeling watching this game, where the feeling more that I had was, okay, maybe you're just not quite good enough in certain spots. We've talked about the rotation at cornerback. There was none. There was almost zero. I think a defensive back, they ran 5 defensive backs almost every play. I think all but 10, where they went to a true 3-4 at times. They ran 5 defensive backs the whole time, and it was the same 5 defensive backs. So there was almost no rotation at cornerback. They didn't run any dime or anything like that. And I've said it before, the Falcons have not used a day 1 or day 2 draft pick on a cornerback since A.J. Terrell. So I think that was 2000. So it's been 5 years since they drafted a day 1 or even day 2, which means first, second, or third round. It's a premium position. Those are your premium picks on a cornerback. And it shows. It does. It shows. Mike Hughes, I think, would be a good number 3 guy. He's not necessarily a great number 2 guy. So there needs to be some work there. The depth at wide receiver is being tested in a big way, right now with Mooney out and then London. Update on London is that, he tweaked his shoulder on that play that got called an incomplete pass. He's listed day to day. So hopefully that it won't be any more than that. But there are some questions personnel wise out here. But as far as scheme goes, other than special teams, I don't feel like it was the scheme that necessarily cost the Falcons a game here. Gear Trail, appreciate you. Thank you so much again coming in. Says we seem to be overwhelmed on the left side more than the right, and Bergeron has regressed significantly from his rookie year. And Gear Trail, I agree. I'm not sure where you came in, but talking about Eli Wilkinson, how big of a liability was going to be over at right tackle. He wasn't. He was at worst adequate. He did a job. Now, was he a guy that I can, put my head down and run behind like you plan with Caleb McGarry? No, but did he do a good job on the blind side of Michael Penix Jr.? Yes, he did. He did a very good job over there at right tackle, and Newsel was fine too. I didn't see Newsel getting blown back onto his hiney a lot. It was Bergeron, and I'll be interested to see. I told y'all, how do I use PFF grades? I use them as a guide, the same way I used to tell people with recruiting rankings. Use them as a guide. They're not the Bible. They're not the law. I'm not telling you I'm right. I'll tell you what I think. I'm interested to see how PFF grades this offensive line and different players. Diablo should be super high. Wilkins should be fine. Bergeron should be graded poorly. Newsel should be okay. I didn't watch as much Lindstrom. I'll be honest with you. I didn't watch as much Lindstrom because for me, he's unknown. I feel like he's good. He's going to take care of his job. Vita Vea, when he was making plays, it wasn't by blowing right through the middle. He was still making plays laterally, moving down the sideline. So, where he wasn't like just going. I don't want Newsel on Vea. Nobody does. And centers aren't meant to take on a guy like that. You got to use 2 guys on him. But I didn't see Vea blowing people up in the center of the offensive line when he was making his plays. We're just running right over Newsel. So once I see that, I wanted their grades, and it matches with what I saw. Then I know I can use them in other places. Okay, was Onyemata as bad as I thought he was, as outmatched in the middle of the defensive line? Again, I'm not blaming Onyemata for that. He is not a one technique nose guard. That's not his best role. He is a defensive tackle. But he might be the best you got there, so he's forced to play out of position. But Zach Harrison should be one of the higher graded players on the defensive line. So I want to see that. So I want to see how PFF grades this offensive line, because Bergeron should be 5th. Gear Trail, I'm with you on that. He should be 5th on this. He did not have a good game. And I don't know how much of that is Jake Matthews too. Whenever I focused on Jake Matthews and his one-on-ones, Jake Matthews was doing okay. The problem came through the middle. And Cansey, 94, and I saw 95 come in, who was listed at 3rd team. They both were making plays head up over the left guard. So on that one, let me get back into the chat and see how things are going. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. Because y'all are super busy in here. Jay, good to see you. I know I haven't gotten to my Facebook guys as much. Chris, Jay, et cetera, et cetera. Michael, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. How good were our linebackers? They were very good. Absolutely. Caden Ellis is one of the best defensive players in this league. He falls victim to the I'm an Atlanta Falcons syndrome, and we don't make the playoffs and nobody pays attention to us and no one cares. He probably wish he would have gotten that sack towards the end on Baker Mayfield. Some of those are finishing plays. The Falcons got pressure, but they needed 5 guys to do it. Now, what I do like, though, of course, is it was a different 5 guys. You run your front 4, but Divine Diablo was getting pressure. Billy Bowman was getting pressure. Caden Ellis was getting pressure. Those are 3 coming from nickel, linebacker, on that one. And Bucks Rays Bolt saying the refs were bad. Tell me the truth. I didn't see too many like egregious calls out there. What I did like though, which doesn't happen enough, Vilma, I actually thought had a good game. Jonathan Vilma had a good game. As far as what am I seeing? And call me arrogant. Whatever. I grade the announcers. Are they telling me what I see? Because yes, I see a lot. I'm analytical. This is what I do. I've made a living out of watching football. And Mike Pereira is really, really good. He started the whole rules analyst thing, and ESPN doesn't do it very well. Mike Pereira does it great, and he nailed the several questionable, close calls about how it was going to work and how it went. What are you talking about? Penix was short. Short of what? He's not tall, but the 2 on 4th down, I don't think there was really any controversy over the 1st down and then on the touchdown. So and then you couldn't tell, and then on the Drake London catch, you've got 85,000 cameras and couldn't get a shot coming out of the back of the end zone on Drake London. So I was okay with them staying with that call. Again, I've said a zillion times, and I will go to the grave saying this: you don't re-referee the game in review. And the second I hear them say, and if I was producing this game and I'm in their ears, the second I even hear them think about saying, "Oh, this is a really tough call for them to make," you've lost the plot. The replay review's job is not to make the tough call. The call has already been made on the field. The replay review's job is to see if he just made an epic mistake. That was what replay was instituted for. It wasn't to spend 5 minutes trying to figure out the minutia. I want to put a shot clock on it. I want to put 30 seconds on it at most. And if you cannot overturn a call and say that he royally effed up in 30 seconds, go with what was on the field and let's play ball on this. So I thought I didn't have a big problem with how the officials called the game. And I actually didn't have a big problem with how Kenny Albert and Jonathan Vilma and Mike Pereira called the game as well. I thought they did a good job on that. Let me see here. James Hinton, he says, I'm believing to think that the coaching staff don't have a clue on evaluations. The defensive line, nope. Cornerbacks, nope. Receivers, nope. Offensive line, nope. Some of this is out of your hands, so the question I would have on this, James, is, who was available to you? Maybe this is a draft thing, maybe it is. As far as where this goes, when you look at, okay, you took this linebacker and then 10 picks later, the Chiefs take Nick Bolton. This guy didn't play for you. You took Jalen Mayfield in the 3rd when you needed a right tackle because Caleb McGarry was struggling. And 40 picks later, Spencer Brown goes. You take, let's see, who was the other one? You take Richie Grant and pass on the chance to take Javon Holland. You take Braylon Trice, and meanwhile, Caden Ellis's brother, I think, was 2nd in the league in sacks as a rookie about 6 picks later after Braylon Trice. Was it Jonah Ellis for the Broncos? A couple picks later, so I don't hindsight grade as far as, when it comes to it. I will tell you who I would have taken, and I will tell you if I'm right or wrong. I'll tell you if I liked the pick at the time, and even if it works out, I'll tell you I didn't like the pick at the time. I do not hindsight grade. So I've been pretty pleased with this last draft. I was pretty pleased with how it went. But as far as like when I think of evaluations right now, I think of, okay, who did you keep and who didn't you when it comes to after camp? And there weren't any cuts that I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you cut that guy. The only questionable ones I think were probably at receiver with Dylan Drummond, Chris Blair. How big a difference would they have made yesterday? Maybe, when you got Kadero Hodge running down the left side and Casey Washington missing a play, but Casey, could you have used somebody else there? But those are 4th and 5th receivers on there. Offensive line. I think the offensive line has been playing okay. Eli Wilkinson was out there doing a good job, and maybe that's coaching. Again, I think Dwayne Ledford's a fantastic coach on the offensive line, because I don't think I was the only one that was kind of worried about how Eli was going to play out there, and Eli did a good job. I think he did a really good job. Sam, good to see you. Good morning. He says, can you believe we were tied for 3rd in pressure rate, but just 1 sack? Those pressures led to backbreaking Baker scrambles. Have to get home. Yeah. Again, I looked up the stats. Baker had 5 rushes. The Buccaneers had 5 rushing first downs. I'd bet a lot of money all 5 of those came from his 5 scrambles. And that was 5 of their 16 first downs. That was one of the big, for me, that was one of the big keys, was him being able to break containment and extend plays with his drive. That and special teams. And beyond Koo missing the field goal, because the Buccaneers kicker missed one too. Again, the Buccaneers didn't play great in this game. They had some very costly penalties. They missed a field goal. They didn't have a great game either. So when I titled this Atlanta Falcons below chance to start 1-0, home game and a Tampa Bay team that didn't play very well, that is a golden opportunity to start 1-0. And then obviously missing a field goal at the end. But yeah, they were the pressure rate. Again, the pressure rate was good. The containment was not. You've got to finish those off. There were at least one, probably more than one where it was like a legit pressure. Because again, sometimes they invite pressure, standing in the pocket until the pressure comes, and then delivering a pass is called a pressure, and it's not. That's not pressure. That was the big problem I had with Raheem. I think this is gaslighting us about pressure against Seattle last year. Oh, we had the most pressures we had all season. No, Geno Smith stood in the pocket until someone got in his face, and then he delivered strikes and he cut you to pieces. That's not pressure. Baker Mayfield was under pressure a lot yesterday. They were legitimate pressures again, but the problem was they needed 5 guys to do it. So, and then when they lost containment, Baker just killed him. Baker Mayfield just killed him on scrambles for sure. Rudy is not a fan of the pistol formation, and the tight end in motion was just so predictable. Why are we running straight up the middle instead of attacking the edges? Well, off tackle is different. They did try on 1st and goal from the 1 after Penix gets the first down. They've got, I don't even know what kind of lineup it is. They had a tailback and a halfback, and they almost run a jet sweep with Bijan. He loses 3 yards as they get overwhelmed on the left side by numbers. I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, because I've been critical in my mind and chatting with Garrett about my thoughts on the game. Well, I'm watching, Bergeron blocked his guy. Matthews blocked his guy. They're outnumbered over there. When they kind of ran into it. But there was another one, excuse me. There was another play. I think it was the first 4th and 1 out of the pistol. Pitts comes in motion and just kind of runs down into it, just tries to shield his guy. He brought his guy right into the backfield. And I think it may have been Hassan Reddick coming off the edge and then gets a piece of Robinson to stop him. I'm like, what was that? You just invited him in. You didn't even try. You ran him in. He just followed you right down into the play. And then he just tried. He turned his back and put up his hands trying to shield him instead of blocking him. The very next time I saw that, Pitts won in the game. Felipe Franks was. Felipe Franks was in it blocking tight end on the next play. So they are seeing these things too, y'all. They are. They're seeing these things too. Sam again, he says, where do you get a kicker in September? Well, there's a lot of places you can get one in September because kickers are a dime a dozen. But why not just get the guy for practice squad? The Falcons already have the guy that they want to use, and Lenny Craig. So was Younghoe Koo more consistent from 50 yards in during training camp? Yes, he was. Do I care about that now? No, I do not. I do not care about training camp right now. Lenny Craig has a stronger leg. You're automatically in field goal position when you cross the 50-yard line. Now you won't kick it from the 50, but if they're sitting on the 45 and they line up for a 62-yarder for the win, it's got a chance. It has a chance. And I don't feel good about Younghoe Koo kicking a ball from anywhere. Not an extra point, not from 30, not from 40, not from 50. So I would go Lenny Craig right now. I think you end up saving over the next 2 years by the time you pay his replacement, because I think you'll end up paying Lenny Craig about $1 million. You end up saving, I think, $3 million over the next 2 years. Yeah, and I would make that move now. I would make it now. You can say all the things you want. We have a lot of faith in him. We believe in him. We love the guy. And I would thank him for the stuff he did. But this is the NFL, and you are handsomely compensated, and you've put away several $1 million to kick a football. So you should be set for life. Good luck. Goodbye. That's the only job I'm calling for in week 1 is the kicker's job on that one is Younghoe Koo. Who's this guy? I was just about to say goodbye. Are you here to say goodbye to everyone, Nick?
I'm here to say hello for a little bit. Gosh darn. No, a little guy got a cold in the night, and I thought I set my alarm, and I checked it was set for 5 p.m. So that doesn't help me out very much. But here we are. Yeah, I wanted to say hello. Gosh darn. But yeah, Koo, frustrating game. Penix looked pretty good. And I thought the defense played as well as we could have hoped. I mean, Egbuka, frustrating, no doubt, but it felt like they getting home with 4 and not the result we wanted, no doubt, but very frustrating to have the kicker miss that one.
Yeah, for sure. And here's Darrell, GA Doc coming in with a super. Thank you, my friend. I certainly appreciate now. See, this is why I have trouble when I'm to try and follow the chat at the same time. I get caught in, and I want to argue with like every single one of them, and I interrupt myself. Y'all think I interrupt Nick a lot? You ought to hear the voices in my head. Thank you for the super. Y'all have been so awesome today, as far as kickers go and stuff. Now, let's say just spitball this, Nick. When you're thinking tiers of quarterbacks, top of my head, and what I saw from Michael Penix again in the clutch, and a lot of the gradings that he got in preseason rankings were basically incompletes. He's in the low 20s because, we haven't seen enough from him. There's just no way that he's not a top 15 quarterback in this league for me. Not right now. He's really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, he had a heck of a game. I'd have to go through the rankings right now to do that.
Like I said, not overthinking it, just spitballing it. This is a better than average quarterback in this league.
He belongs. There is no doubt about that. He's a dude, and gosh, the clutch play. It's a bummer to kind of waste that performance, that drive. I mean, gosh, everything he did, and that one, good placement on the balls, even though they were incomplete. Honestly, when I watched the game, but I came away with Penix is the truth. But I'm so impressed by Bijan. Just the movement skills. He moves so different. I know he didn't have the best stat line in the game, but the yards that he earned were tough freaking yards.
No, and just you get him in space. The job of your offensive coordinator is to get him in space. He's the best open field runner since Barry Sanders. There will never be another one as good as Barry Sanders. They're just not built like that anymore. I think he is the best make you miss guy in the open field since Barry.
Mm-hmm. I mean, God, he just glides. So overall, pretty good game. I was a little bit underwhelmed with the offensive line. Somewhat, I thought they could have been a bit better. We're speed running this one. But overall, yeah, Penix for sure. Excited. I was a little bummed.
I know you're a special teams guy, so I railed on the return games. Yeah. It's not just about Koo. And as Christy says, good to see you, Christy. Thank you. She says, make it into a short, which is what I basically said, Nick, was with Koo was, you feel for the human being, but these guys are handsomely paid. He's banked enough money. And as Clay says here, You know, in all fairness, it's not about just this week. No, it's not. This was the last straw. This was, for me, this was the last straw. He should have, you could have benched him last year. You brought in competition. You could have replaced him during this offseason. You had serious misgivings about him having the job, and then he goes out and misses a game-tying field goal when you've got all the momentum, the home crowd, and you've been beating, across the stat line, you have been beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then it all goes down the drain on a 44-yard field goal, which is like a 95% conversion rate in the NFL. Those, especially indoors, especially without the elements. And it's nothing personal, and you've made several $1 million off of this franchise. You should be set for life, but you're fired. Yeah. You're fired. And I don't feel good saying about it. I wish him no ill will, but I don't want to see Younghoe Koo kicking for the Atlanta Falcons again. I'm done. I'm done. You cannot afford to kick your way out of a slump in games that are at best the biggest margin. I said it, Nick. I don't know if you knew this. The biggest spread over the weekend was 8.5 points in the NFL. That's how close the margins are. I cannot afford to have a misfiring kicker. It's 8.5 points. And you know what? You know how many one-score games the Falcons played last year?
12.
12.
Yeah.
They were 6-6 in those 12 in those 12 games. 6-6. Well, here's one they lost. They probably shouldn't have. And well, one game on the other side last year, and you're 9-8. You might be in the playoffs. 2 of those, and you're 10-7. And that's how small the margins are in the NFL that I can't afford. I said I was only going to call for one job today, Nick. There's stuff that we want to see better, but I was only calling for one job this morning, and it's Younghoe Koo's.
We were texting each other after that happened. Koo can't afford it. You got Krieger. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Yep, Lenny Krieg.
Maybe it's time, or it got to roll through. I know that's the Bills brought off. See it in the chat too. They brought Prater off the couch, and he hit the game winner out there last night. And God, what a game the Bills-Ravens game was. But very frustrating. Scott, I hate to do it. I do have to fly here to get over to the Broncos one. As you can see, I'm getting here pretty close here for the pack up.
I know. Getting ready to move. So appreciate you stopping by and saying hello. We'll talk more on Wednesday as we look forward to we'll have some more thoughts we'll start looking forward to the Minnesota game. So we'll have a little idea today. Kruger, yeah. Lenny Kruger. I think he said Krieger actually on that one. So
I did say Krieger. That's an Archer.
Yeah. So all right, you get out of here, and I will talk to you later. I should see you tomorrow night, but not 100%. I might be a little late.
Okay.
And
sounds good.
Let me see. I'll see you later. Are y'all really talking about Rook on this one now? The 15-yard penalty on Rook? That was pretty soft, y'all. When I heard it, because I told you I listened to the game first. When I heard it, it sounded awful. Watching it live, I'm like, that wasn't that bad. That certainly wasn't the Grady Jarrett, Tom Brady Tampa one we saw down in Tampa in 2021. Wasn't that? Was that 21? It certainly wasn't that one. As far as it wasn't a hugely stupid play by Rook, and it wasn't quite as bad of a dive as Brady had that day. I can see why they called it, but I'm not like all over Rook like for doing that. It wasn't that egregious a call. Not like, I don't know if y'all watch Florida USF, not like spitting on an offensive lineman and putting a team in field goal range. Oh God, what are you doing? Yes, Spitgate happened on Thursday night with Philly and Tampa, but it happened again on Saturday. It's probably a little quieter. Didn't get quite the talk for Saturday. It happened again on Saturday. So it was again. I don't have any problem with the officiating in this game, and there was nothing like there was completely black and white as far as, oh my God, like I said, that Grady Jarrett thing on Tom Brady, that one was an oh my God, what are you doing type of play. That was a rule changing type of miss. This was a good game between two teams that are pretty evenly matched, that have played something like 7 or 8 straight one-score games. and Baker Mayfield running the ball and the special teams, even beyond Younghoe Koo, were the difference in this game. And it will probably come down to these two at the end again for who wins the NFC South. Here's the thing. Tampa, the last couple years, has improved as the season has gone on. The Falcons have gotten worse as the season has gone on the last 4 years. So this was one you needed. This is one you didn't want to give. So hopefully the Falcons, with such a young defense, some of those knockdowns come into interceptions. Some of those pressures turn into sacks. And that can end up being the difference in this game. And some of those missed kicks become made kicks. That's what you're hoping as the team can improve. So it will come down, but it was a really entertaining game. Lots to build on. Special teams got to get better. Period. And then need to get some guys healthy. Need to get Mooney back. Drake needs to be healthy to move forward. But I'm going to say thank you again to our Super Chat superstars who just killed it today, including Trenton several times, Edward, Dwan, We Sound Strange, Mike Harvey, Big Buck, Jet Jones, Gear Trail coming in a couple times. Sam, always good to see you. And Darrell, GA Doc, thank you for the supers, my friend. And we will be back. Yep. And we mentioned that too, Gregory. Tampa didn't play great. They didn't play great in this game. This was a missed opportunity for the Falcons for sure on that one. So we'll see. We'll see tonight. We'll get a good look at the Vikings. They should probably improve from week 1 to week 2 with this being JJ's first start. I'll be interested to see. Hopefully the Bears are wearing their black, so it won't like bring too many tears to my eyes watching Grady Jarrett in the wrong uniform out there. Clay Drake, London is day-to-day right now, is the report from Ian Rappaport. The Drake is day-to-day, so expect him to he'll probably be listed as questionable most of the week, but right now it seems like he would be okay to go next week. I'm going to get out of here. Appreciate y'all being here. Hope you had fun like I did today. We will see you on Wednesday. Don't forget to come and see Garrett tomorrow night, and then you'll see Nick and I back here on Wednesday. Thanks again, everybody. Y'all have a great rest of your week.